space.
Everybody, welcome to episode 6 of Punks and Pinfalls. You were just listening to a little bit of Full of Hell. They were here a while back in Dayton, played Rockstar Pro Arena on the Weed Eater tour. They're coming back on a headlining tour. They'll be here Thursday, March 12th. More about that later. As always, I am Gigi, as always accompanied by...
Sita.
Again, Punks and Pinfalls. We've been doing this for a few weeks. We're now episode 6. Can you believe we've gotten a month and a half of this in?
Yeah.
We always talk about what's going on in the world of indie music and indie wrestling. And last week I stumbled into a better format that we like. We're going to give you all the rock show plugs right out of the gate, and that way we're not stressed for time. So let's dive through our upcoming schedule. This Saturday, February 21st, Hail to the King's final show as Hail to the King. They're changing their name. This Saturday, check that out. Tickets available at rockstarproarena.com. The following Friday, the 27th, Lorna Shore comes back to Rockstar Pro Arena. They were here last July on the Within the Ruins tour. They're again coming back for their headlining show next Friday, February 27th, 7 p.m., Locals Ascension, Oracle, and Grayscale Blonde are on that bill. Same weekend, the following night, Saturday, February 28th at Rockstar Pro Arena. My band, Legbone, come check us out. It's going to be a good time. It's all local bands, 5 bands for only $7. Starts at 7 p.m. Chubb City, Call It December, Pariah, Yerf, and my band, Legbone. Check us out at legbone.com if you're not familiar. And if you go to rockstarproarena.com, there's information about all of these bands, all of these shows, links to tickets for all of these shows. Mm-hmm. And then coming up in March, Tuesday, March 3rd, Survive This with the Paramedic and more to be announced. And then, as I said, Thursday, March 12th, Full of Hell. You heard them at the beginning of the show. We started the last couple episodes with a little bit of Full of Hell. A little live recording from them. They're intense, they're chaotic, they're crazy. We saw them at Rockstar Pro Arena on the Weed Eater tour. Now they're coming back Thursday, March 12th, 7 p.m. Locals Grim State and Monster Magdalene are on the show. And then the following night, Friday the 13th of March, horror punk band Grave Robber comes to town. Locals The Knuckles, Glass World, and Silence to Violence on that show. I'm sorry, excuse me, From Silence to Violence. I don't want them to listen to it and go, you said our name wrong. And then Saturday, March 21st, Byzantine with Horlet, Bearer of Bad News, and National Headcase. So, any questions, go to rockstarproarena.com. We just open the show with all the info you need.
There we go. We're done with our promoting now. But, and all shows also are, all of them are all ages. That's one thing special about our arena is all ages, whether you're an old fuddy-duddy like us or some like 14, 15-year-old that just wants to come hang out with either we've had, 14, 15-year-olds come up with their parents, which is awesome. I love chatting with some parents. They hang up front, drink beers while juniors up front, listen to the rock show. Or we've had, parents drop off their kid because they felt secure because we are one of the clubs we believe in security. And so if you have a problem, you can come to our place and you're just not going to be randomly let loose,
Yeah.
So we've had people drop their kids off, their 13 and 14-year-olds, and it's awesome to see them, and stuff. And it's fun when the parents pick them up, like, hey, how was he? He's good. Have a good night. So it's awesome.
Yeah, for anyone who's never been to Rockstar Pro Arena, you walk in the front door and there's a little lobby concessions area where the women's restrooms are, and you can order snacks, food, soda, and if you are 21, beer. And then it opens up into the main room, which is huge, holds 400 people. So the kids can go in there and mosh and dance and go nuts. But you know what? There's security everywhere. Mm-hmm. So they can get out their aggressions in the pit, but we've got a bunch of big burly dudes surrounding the pit to make sure it doesn't turn into a fight.
It's very convenient having a wrestling school and promotion and needing security for events. Two, it works out.
Yeah, any of the wrestlers that are free, we're like, hey, are you booked on such and such date? You want to work security? So take a big burly athlete and put a security shirt on them, and they make for an intimidating presence. They keep the kids in line.
Stay in the corner staring at girls is basically what they do. So, and one thing about the club, since he described it, you walk in first and there's a room that's concession food and beer and stuff, and then you walk into a bigger room and you walk through this little small, 5-foot long hallway that has bathrooms on either side. Well, there's always people who come in and they go, where's the concert at? And I mean, they're coming there to see bands. They know there's 300 or 400 people there for, and they're like, we're and they can't find how to get to this big room. I'm like, just by pure close your eyes and listen, you could hear noise coming from this little 4-foot, and it kind of dampens the sound because it's just around the corner a little bit, but still, it's like a person's length maybe. So, but that always cracks me up. They can't find where the actual concert's happening. And
then also in that front room, there are 2 ladies' rooms. So everybody always goes, where's the men's room? It's in the big main room. So 3 restrooms. So ladies, you have 2 restrooms all to yourself. We take care of you.
I loved it because, every once in a while you gotta do stuff to amuse yourself. I love when, you'll get the, really young kids, first concert show, and he comes like, men's room, where's the men's room? You're like, dude, we don't have those. It's only for ladies. And they have this look like, well, shit, I can't find a bathroom. Is this true? Is this how they do rock concerts? Guys don't pee, that's always awesome, I thought. But that will help them. There's now signs. Sometimes it's lit up, and we'll show them and stuff. But
yeah, I'm always proud of the best of both worlds. When we were kids coming up, and there was always somebody like us who was renting a VFW or something. You find some hall and rent it out and rent a sound system and throw a DIY punk show because the music that the bands are playing isn't, what the local cover band bar wants. Or the kids are just underage and can't get into the 21 and up venue. So all ages, but if you're of age, there is a bar there. So best of both worlds.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've covered some of the rock shows that are going to be coming to Rockstar Pro Arena. You all know that every Wednesday night, Rockstar Pro Wrestling does our weekly showcase. It's our television taping for our weekly TV Amped, which you can see at rockstarprowrestling.com. Every week there's a new episode. It also airs on DATV in the Dayton area. So check that out every Wednesday night at the arena, and every first Friday we do a big monthly internet pay-per-view. The next one coming up is Friday, March 6th. Unstoppable. Already announced for Unstoppable on March 6th. The Bulldozer, Matt Tremont, versus the Pitbull Ganger. 2 guys who have a lot of respect for each other. 2 guys who are just big, burly, tough, rugged dudes. 2 guys who can get bloody and go hardcore and go into barbed wire and whatever else.
If I was a chair, I'd be terrified right now.
Yes, it's guys like these who increase our chair budget. I think we've made a joke about that on this show before. When you run a wrestling promotion, chairs are always a big part of your budget.
They could be currency.
Yeah, they can. They're like currency. Cigarettes in jail.
Yes.
But yeah, Tremont and Ganger have a lot of respect for each other, and they're gonna have a crazy, wild, hardcore match. And looking forward to seeing how the rest of that card comes together. Yeah. We'll be announcing more and more about that. But again, the next big Wrestling Eye pay-per-view at Rockstar Pro Arena, March 6th. Now, in the world of wrestling outside of Rockstar Pro, CZW 16 coming up next weekend, this coming weekend, February 21st. It'll be on Live Eye pay-per-view from the ECW Arena in Philly. WSU Championship match, Lufisto versus Shauna. CZW Tag Team match, the Young Bucks versus OI4K. So a big Rockstar Pro presence at CZW's big show. It's going to be fantastic. Make sure you check that out.
If you have nothing to do and you do not want to go to a rock concert, 21st, what I would do is sit at home, get on DIY. I'd order our last pay-per-view. watch that, sit down, have a little lunch, and then I would sit down and watch the CCW page.
Yeah, that's a great day.
So that's a good day, you know?
Yeah, 3, you know, we were hyping it leading up to it. Last week's show, we were talking about how amazing show it was. It is now available on internet pay-per-view. Go and check it out on DIYWrestling.com. Again, there's links on the Rockstar Facebook page and on RockstarProWrestling.com. But it's hosted at DIYWrestling.com. Rockstar Pro Wrestling 3, the 3-year anniversary of our venue, Rockstar Pro Arena, and it was wild, and it so worth the $10. Check it out online. Amazing show.
If you seriously go back, I think, and especially go to DIYWrestling.com and look at the last 5 or 6 pay-per-views, you can see there's definitely a transformation happening of talent-wise within Rockstar. To go back and look 3 or 4 pay-per-views, it's awesome. You can kind of go, okay, here's a couple indie names, here's a couple more, oh, whoa, you know, and like you could just tell the company's growing.
From more and more guest stars to watching guys like Matt Tremont and you know, Eric Ryan and guys who are not local Dayton, Ohio area or Cincinnati area talent. You know, these are guys who we import from out of state, but they have become regular roster at Rockstar. And again, not only the talent, seeing the talent step it up and seeing all the people that we're bringing in and watching our own homegrown talent step up and steal the show, but, you know, just watching the production. You know, we're now in HD, and, you know, the shows look great, multiple camera angles. You know, you see the wild, ravenous Rockstar Pro crowd. There is a local wrestling website, WrestleOhio.com. I've done interviews with them a few times. There's a cat there named Husky Howard who interviews everyone under the sun. Everyone in the wrestling business has done an interview with this guy at some point. And every single time he interviews anyone that works for Rockstar, he always asks, what's it like to work in front of that crowd? You know, because the Dayton crowd it's so reminiscent. You know, we've had Tommy Dreamer, we've had Sabu, we've had Rhino, we've
Tracy
Smothers, Al Snow. When guys from the old ECW bingo hall days go, man, this crowd reminds me of the old Philly crowd. You know, that's awesome.
Yeah, when guys like that in the back go, you guys got something kind of special here, man. These, you know, so it's a great crowd. But yeah, and 3 was great from top to bottom, man. Like the main event, like I've actually went back and watched the main event on DIYWrestling.com, and like, dude, there's just our poor production guy to sit down and try and edit the chaos, like. You know, we're indie wrestling. We have a small crew, and our production guy busts his ass because, dude, you could have had 8 cameras there that night and like still miss shit. And the way he put it together in the main event, applaud because like, congrats on that because, dude, you could have had like 8 cameras and not caught everything because it was in, out of the ring, everywhere.
So big shout out to our director. JL Thrush Productions. He does a fantastic job for us. And yeah, we were just watching the iPay-per-view before we started recording the podcast, and the aerial assault match. Again, anyone who's ever been to Rockstar Pro Arena, there is a separate little office area in that main room that we use as a beer cave when it's a sold out night. When we had ICP there, we had to use that as a second bar because there's just too many people in there. And, you know, we didn't want everybody waiting in line forever, so we opened up a second bar for the night. And
it's hard to believe we are an indie rock club that does believe in customer service.
Yeah.
Some of our patrons come to our bar are, like, still shocked by that somewhat, that, like, there's somewhat customer service. We try to get them, you know, within a reasonable amount of time, a drink. So the beer cave, it only gets open for sold out nights. You know, we've only had to open it up a few times when it's standing room only and we couldn't squeeze anyone else in that building with a crowbar. But there's a separate little building in the main room, and Nate Wings dove off of it. And just everything about that show. And what about Colin Delaney and Eric Ryan? Dude, that match was amazing.
Like, you talk about all the crazy flips and dives and everything that happened the aerial assault match, and then just the sheer carnage and guys crashing through barbed wire boards in the main event. But just pure wrestling, man. Colin Delaney and Eric Ryan, I think they stole the show.
Dude, one thing about when I went back and watched that match is like, there's points in that match our crowd goes like Japanese, and since they just like they go and do stuff and then like applause,
they're very quiet.
They're very quiet,
and then they give you the golf clap.
And then and then they do stuff in the ring, golf clap.
Because there's not a definitive good guy and bad guy. You know, the fans love both of them, and they just want to see a good match.
Yeah.
And so, you know, they're just, you know, sitting quietly and respectfully watching the wrestling, and then when somebody hits something big, then they pop.
It was awesome though, because there was no boos. There was tons of yays and everything, but there was no. It was just like they were into watching the match, like, and that's great to see a crowd. They had sucked them in just to watch that match that, you know, they were into. They didn't care about feud or anything. They just wanted to see wrestling.
You know, something else from the pay-per-view that you know, you don't see a lot. How about Bulldozer Matt Tremont in a regular traditional wrestling match? It wasn't an ultra-violent death match. It wasn't hardcore rules or whatever you want to call it. It was just a regular wrestling match against the man without fear, Kyle Maverick. Mm-hmm. And it was a good match, and it was great to see Tremont at the end of a match get his hand raised and not be a bloody mess in the process. Mm-hmm.
And Tremont's one of those guys, like, I'd seen his name on the indies, I seen DVDs with him, but I never really sat down and watched him, you know. And when he came to Rockstar, I started watching some more videos of him, and I actually got to see him live. And, dude, I totally underappreciate the guy. The guy is one of my favorite wrestlers right now. You know, he went from, I kind of like the guy, to like, he's the shit in my opinion. You know, he's awesome, and it was seeing him live. He's one of those guys you got to see live. That,
he's
like,
a guy that, like,
I get it.
In the old days of the old ECW, and guys like Mick Foley and whatever, who were described as glorified stuntmen, you know, and the garbage wrestling. Oh, they do that hardcore stuff.
Yeah.
They don't wrestle. And then, you know, that match proved it wasn't hardcore rules. There was no blood. There was no light tubes or thumbtacks or anything like that, and they had a good match.
And he reminds me, and sometimes with hardcore, you can get put in that pile of guys who can't really wrestle, and that's not fair to guys like Tremont. And I'll even go back to Balls Mahoney. You know, Balls Mahoney, he did his hardcore shit, and but he was an amazing wrestler. Like, there's sometimes he's wrestled RVD, and it was like an amazing wrestling match, and like, that's when those guys are really, really, really great, is when you take one of those hardcore guys and they do their stuff, but then you take that away and they can be just as entertaining.
And the guy who started it in America, and I still think nobody did it better, Terry Funk.
Yeah.
You know, there's a guy that could
classic wrestling matches.
Yeah, he could beat you with a branding iron and pile drive you through a table and whatever, but he could also, you know, do a spinning toe hold and
yeah. And that's what, going back, I think that's what kind of made like ECW so special. So many of those guys that could actually wrestle, and then they also did the hardcore as a bonus.
Oh yeah, because
you know what I mean?
There's so many different types of wrestling fans. We've talked about this before on the show. Right now is an amazing time to be a wrestling fan. You have, the WWE has their own damn network now.
Yeah.
In addition to 3 hours of Raw on Mondays now, plus 2 hours of SmackDown. And then they record NXT, Superstars, and Main Event for the network. You just WWE alone is putting out hours and hours of wrestling every week. And then you have TNA Impact just made their move, and we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
You know, we're getting a little more detail about TNA here in a second, but you know, they're again 2 hour Impact every week, and now with their new TV deal, they're going to be having more wrestling on TV every week. Lucha Underground on the El Rey Network. You know, there's just so much wrestling. And then, you know, Jeff Jarrett, Global Force Wrestling is going to be launching soon. And, you know, there's just so much out there. And I just remember when I was a kid, and, you know, and I'm old, you know, so this is, you know, even pre-Monday Night Wars, you know, Saturday morning and Saturday 6:05, you know, that's when you watched wrestling.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you'd see, you know, Global and AWA and ESPN are on ESPN.
On ESPN.
And World Class from Texas would be on ESPN. and all that stuff when I was a little kid that first exposed me to wrestling. And you had to really seek it out, and there were only a few hours of television available. And a lot of times, the syndicated shows were just highlights of the same stuff you saw on another show.
And they weren't main event matches. Like, I've been kind of going back and watching, like, on the network, I watched, like, the first Raw, and I've been watching them in order now, and same thing with the Nitros they have on the train.
Oh.
But if you especially go back to the Raws, they're kind of boring because 9% of it is just, like, jobbers getting crushed, which unfortunately, I miss that now because I think you have to have a median. You have to have some jobbers so guys can get over their characters, but you can't have, like they were in some of the Raws where it was like 9% jobbers. You're like, okay, blah, 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 Tatanka's going to come out and win, blah, and it was like...
But it's this superstar you've seen on television versus local enhancement journeyman,
So if you look back at then, like, when we were kids, Clash of Champions was the shit because it was free and it was like... matches. You got, it wasn't jobber match.
Yeah, every single match. Well, that was the early advent of, from like WrestleMania and early, even before pay-per-view, what was it? The closed circuit TV.
Yeah.
Back when they used to do that. You have to, kids today with the internet and everything streaming.
You kids.
Yeah, you kids, get off my lawn. But like, they don't even know. When I was a little kid, I remember the first 2 WrestleManias, you had to go to like your local movie theater or something like that and watch it on a big screen. They had the closed circuit. You couldn't just order it at home.
Or if you knew somebody, I remember being so young, you had to know somebody that had the huge fucking satellite dishes.
Oh yeah,
like they were ridiculous, and they could get them every once in a while. But I remember as a kid, like I couldn't understand, like, why would they advertise their pay-per-views that you can't even order or get? So, but yeah, nowadays it's so much easier. But yeah, and it's back then it was less wrestling and there was less like
wrestling that mattered, less competition.
Yeah, less headlining matches. I would say name versus name. So, but yeah. So let's jump into TNA. I've been reading some stuff, and I was showing Gigi here that Destination America as a channel network, whatever it is completely satisfied with TNA.
Yes, #1 rated show on their network. Some of the biggest ratings they've ever had on the network.
I was reading the thing. It was literally like best debut of a show, best Friday night, best time slot. Like it was everything on there was like #1 for TNA. So congrats to TNA because I mean you can. I feel. If you have 1 or 2 shows on your network, you can build a network.
Oh yeah, and look before when Sci-Fi Network using WWE programming. Think about TNA's former home on Spike. Remember when Spike first was transforming? They used to be the Nashville Network, and it was nothing but like rodeos. And it was weird, like demolition derbies.
Well, and think, can you name one other show from the 80s that was on USA Network?
Oh yeah, USA is another.
I mean,
and Ted Turner's whole empire. That's why Ted Turner bought Jim Crockett Promotions and launched WCW, was because he built his cable empire on the back of pro wrestling.
I remember reading something a long time ago. It was back in the day when there's only like 3 or 4 networks. On TV you could watch, like one of the top things you had to go get was a wrestling show locally because that was great ratings, So I think Destination America with this TNA thing being so great for them, hopefully that's a little bit more money in their pockets because you watch production and it's I like it, but it's really dark and like I sometimes wonder like how big is the crowd under the darkness.
Yeah, it's funny because. Again, producing wrestling programming, we put over our director, our editor, JL Thrush does a great job for us putting the show together. But it's lighting and it's sound and it's in multiple camera angles and then editing those multiple camera angles. And I really feel if you go to DIY Wrestling and order 3, our product looks as good as Ring of Honor, if not better. It looks as good as the current TNA product on Destination America, if not better. So yeah, I'm really proud of that. Paulie once said, you can't compete with WWE on production, so why go there? Mm-hmm. Why try? Do something else better. Be different. Mm-hmm. And TNA's had to reinvent themselves. Their production values have obviously, their budget has obviously been trimmed, and the show doesn't look as slick as it used to. But they're signing more and more, re-signing their top talent. Ken Anderson just returned to television for them. They just announced that they've locked down Kurt Angle, Jeff Hardy. Everybody's getting signed to new deals because over these last few months they were in a state of flux.
Spend money you don't have.
Yeah, they were in a state of chaos. They didn't know if they were going to have a TV deal and where the company was going to be in a few months. So now that they found a home, and the network is very happy. And I had read a bunch of stuff going into this deal. People were like, oh, Destination America is such a smaller network. But they're one of the fastest growing networks. And
so, I did watch the network a little bit, Destination America, before they got wrestling, because I've been on Real Alien Talk with Scary Gary, and stuff, and I'll watch stupid Bigfoot shit and shit. And that's all that's on Destination America, really, is Haunting, or Alien Uncovered, or all kinds of shit. So I did kind of flip it on every once in a while, but it is buried down in the tier a little bit. Yeah. But I think with what they're going for as a network, with that paranormal Bigfoot, they're going for a certain age range and certain people, and I think that fits wrestling. If you're having soap operas and cooking shows on your network, you don't want to have wrestling. You know what I mean? Yeah. But if you're aimed towards alternative entertainment,
remember when Spike first rebranded from TNN? They were Spike, the network for men. Yeah, that was their big thing.
And video game shit on there and stuff like that. So and I think it will open up for other networks to look and say, hey, I can invest this little bit of money into this wrestling company, and it will get me ratings, I think it does hopefully show other smaller networks, because you look on your tiers on cable, there's networks, I'm like, what the hell is this? What is this? Yep. There's 9 ESPN channels. As we were growing up as a kid, ESPN had wrestling on it. Why the hell is there not wrestling on any of the 900 ESPN channels? You can't put one wrestling show on? So I think networks like that, when they see Destination America getting ratings, that there'll be more companies wanting to invest in smaller wrestling companies, seeing that it's small risk, big gains. But again, there's networks I don't like, ESPN, that I'm like, why haven't they done it? MTV, I'm wondering why haven't they gone back into it? And again, it's probably whoever's the head just doesn't want it on their network.
Well, and there's also weird things with WWE being the juggernaut that they are now, and they do run their own network now. Mm-hmm. So it's got to be lucrative for them. They're going to want a lot of money, and they're or else why wouldn't they just air it on the network? Yeah. So there's a lot of that. They they got to sweeten the pot. They got to have a good enough deal. Raw has changed networks before. SmackDown has changed networks before, and it's always just dollars and cents. It's like some other network throws more money at Vince to bring a show to them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you have number 1, 2, or 3 half-hour blocks in television or hour blocks in television, that's power. You know what I mean? Yep. So
Raw's consistently number 1 rated show on cable. It doesn't do the kind of numbers it did back in the Attitude Era, but during that period, they were rivaling Monday Night Football ratings, mm-hmm. which that's on free network TV that everybody with a television gets. Mm-hmm. You don't even have to have cable to get those networks. So when you're competing with Monday Night Football, a lot of people are watching the product.
Well, yeah, and you can kind of tell too, because you watch Raw and the advertisers are like Snickers and car commercials. That's what you see on football. When you watch ROH, they have 1888 injury, for knee braces and shit. You know what I mean? So you can tell the advertisers, and when you can get big chains like Domino's and Ford Motors or GMC behind you,
giant corporate contracts.
That's when you can tell you have some more power in your time slot.
I actually, speaking of, I read something recently that WWE was supposed to be entering into some sort of arrangement with Tap Out, the
Really?
clothing line. Like, Tap Out's going to produce a line of wrestling-themed clothing with WWE. I think it's interesting.
I always wonder if they had some deal with like Walmart or some shit. Does WWE have a deal with them?
They do. You can
do they?
Yeah, you can get John Cena and Rey Mysterio. It's only the ones that are really popular with kids. Yeah. But yeah, you can totally buy.
I go into the Walmart like once every like couple months, and I'm always just amazed. Like, holy shit, this is here now! And like once I walked in, I saw like all these wrestling shirts. I'm like, come on, they have to have a deal or something.
I know they specifically do a deal with Kmart over Christmas. Every year at Christmas, there's some sort of WWE package, and they do commercials and. Yeah, again, it's all just corporate sponsorship. They sell it to the highest bidder.
Let's see what else another like indie thing I've been seeing kind of stuff here and there, and I'm kind of intrigued by is the Jeff Jarrett promotion, Global Force Wrestling, and he did a couple podcasts and stuff, and one was from like a V2 wrestling interview he did. And they were asking, one of the rumors was Russo, is Russo going to work for you? What's some of the structures? And he basically said that Russo at this point it's not working for him, and that Jeff Jarrett is going to be the matchmaker and booker for Global Force Wrestling. And it seems like there's a big kind of connection between him and like New Japan and stuff. So
yeah, they've been doing a lot of co-promoting.
Yeah, I kind of just keep random information about Global Force Wrestling, and I'm kind of like, is this going to be an American promotion, or is this going to be an overseas promotion, or is this kind of being back and forth, or is he kind of just waiting to see where the TV deal is?
Yeah, I think that's all it is. I think they're just waiting to lock down a contract for a TV deal, because they could, they've already done some things in Japan co-promoting, and I'm just like, well, why haven't they officially launched yet?
Yeah.
And I think they're just waiting to try to get a TV contract. But, it could be the give and take. We said on one hand, these small little networks might want to invest in wrestling because they see Destination America doing record numbers for them. But at the same time, because there's so much wrestling on television, some networks might be a little gun shy to throw too much money out when it's not actually WWE or some other. TNA survived a decade. So like they're a marketable brand.
They did a pay-per-view before they actually had a TV deal.
Yeah, and I remember they had a show on Fox Sports for a little while, and so they've proven that they can weather the storm. They've changed networks and they've done different things, but TNA has survived. So a brand new brand with no name recognition. They might be a little leery to invest in Global Force because it's not got WWE attached to it, or at least like I said in TNA's case, they've been on multiple networks. They've been doing pay-per-views and selling merchandise for over a decade now.
The thing I can see, Jeff Jarrett does know how to honestly start a business, and some connections to get it. Some people to see it, they're the right people to look at it and stuff. But he's semi-retired now. He doesn't really wrestle except for every once in a while, and like. I could be wrong, but have you seen anything where like they've done like a small U.S. tour or anything? Like
no, I haven't seen anything in the States. They've co-promoted some things in Japan. That's all I've seen.
That's what I would think. Is like if I'm trying to sell this to the American people and I'm telling you how great this is, like would I do at least like a 5-day tour or 3 days?
Yeah, it is
something. Like,
it's interesting.
So I'm intrigued by it, but I'm also confused by it. So.
Something else going on in the world of TNA. We were talking about this. Apparently, there's still more Von Erichs getting into the wrestling business, and the only surviving Von Erich, Kevin Von Erich, his sons Marshall and Ross, getting into the wrestling business, and looking to see. It's funny when you see second and third now generation guys. And there's so much pressure on them. There's so much that comes with that last name. It'd be interesting to see these guys develop. Much like Cody Hall is out working the Indies right now, trying to get a WWE contract. The son of Scott Hall, Razor Ramon. And you look at the big Samoan heritage. Rikishi's being inducted into the Hall of Fame this year. And we all know that Roman Reigns, the Usos, The Rock, Rikishi, all part of that same legendary Samoan wrestling family that started with High Chief Peter Maivia.
I mean, with the Von Erich family name still does mean a lot, especially down in like the Texas. And I saw a thing where they're coming back on Father's Slammiversary in 2015 or something like that on Father's Day. And it was in Dallas where it's still going to be taking place, and their name, I think it means something still in the Texas and South area.
Yeah, I think just the wrestling world, period. We saw Carrie's daughter, Lacey Von Erich. She made it to television, worked for TNA for a while. But I think her only curse was just being kind of the prototypical diva or whatever.
Well, we were talking earlier, and you were like, well, I could describe her to you, but, I'd be describing 10 other divas.
Yeah, big boob, blonde, tan, all the same.
Yeah.
Where, a redhead maybe stands out more. Maybe a girl of a different ethnicity stands out more. They've had this... Yeah. They just crank them out where, like, so many of the divas just look like Hooters girls. Yeah. And you can't tell any of them apart.
Well, that's why I was talking earlier that I was like, well, I kind of like the Bayley character in NXT because at least it's something different.
Yes.
Same thing with Jessica Havoc in TNA. At least it's something different, than just the same prototype. Yeah. Like... Come on!
Yeah, there's a reason why Lita became so popular during her run because she was different.
Yeah,
red hair and tattoos, and just had this kind of rock girl vibe to her. She stood out in the sea of silicone, fake boob, fake blonde, fake tan chicks.
And I think that's the one thing with mainstream women's wrestling right now is like they got this formula, and they are just like, nope, we're not varying from this at all. We will not. Every once in a while, maybe, but not very far, And it's
over the past year or more, we've seen AJ and Paige dominate the women's division, but they're it. Mm-hmm. They're it in WWE. It's the two of them, and then they throw Natty Neidhart in there once in a while, and it's just kind of the same thing.
And you watch NXT, and some of those girls coming up, like I said, there's a couple here and there that are a little different, but it's just the same and same.
At last week's NXT Takeover, their equivalent of their pay-per-view, their big monthly show they do on WWE Network. That women's match was one of the best women's matches I've seen in a long time. Mm-hmm. Those girls busted their ass, and new NXT Women's Champion Sasha Banks. Again, Bayley and Kelly Lynch and Sasha Banks and Charlotte Flair tore it up. Again, fantastic match. And from the women's division through the men's division, NXT, for my dollar, is kicking the main roster's ass.
Oh, they're kicking their ass. Especially the women's wrestling on NXT is just kicking the main roster's ass.
And even with the men, it's funny that Vince is so into sports entertainment and, gimmicks and really put over people's personalities and characters. When the sports entertainment show, I'm less invested in their characters than I am the guys on the developmental show. Because they're just going out there and having great matches, and they're sucking me in more with that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, NXT is doing a great job right now with everything they're doing and stuff. And they actually had a title change at their pay-per-view. Owens is now the NXT champion. Kind of a weird finish.
We haven't seen that in the world of sports entertainment in a while. It was sort of the ref stepped in and stopped the match. Sami Zayn was unable to continue. They believed he was concussed. And that was your finish. No submission, no pinfall. Competitor unable to compete. Mm-hmm. And the ref awards the match to Kevin Owens. So be real interesting to see the follow-up from here. I'm sure we're going to have a rematch at some point.
I'm sure this is going to be like a 3 or 4 match thing with them or something. But
it's funny, this program is new to the WWE universe, so to speak. But indie wrestling fans know when they were known as Kevin Steen and El Generico in Ring of Honor, they had an amazing rivalry and tore the house down.
It went on forever. Like they had one match like, oh, I can't top that, and then the next match, you like, they just topped it.
And it's a great, what I was just talking about with the women, and you mentioned with Bayley and Kevin Owens. Sometimes it pays to be different. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have the typical look that Vince is looking for, but you believe that he can beat somebody's ass and he can talk, and like the old Dusty Rhodes saying, talk him into the building. You can just put a mic in front of that guy and you believe what he says and you want to see him fight.
Oh, he's an entertaining guy to watch. Even on the indies, I was like, oh, he's great. And I always kind of wondered how he would transform into the WWE universe. I thought it would be kind of hard putting him in it, but especially with the way they kind of change people, and I couldn't see how they could change his gimmick into something different. But if they're going, it seems like with Owens, they're kind of letting him just be his own gimmick, like they're not really changing too much about it. And if they're going to do that, then it's going to really work.
And then there's also a weird thing, though, when guys get really, really over with the NXT audience, which is super indie wrestling fans, you super nerds who are on the internet reading the dirt sheets, know everything, the smart marks, quote unquote. But theirs is like a real wrestling nerd crowd. You see so many guys that get over with NXT, and then they get brought up to the main roster, and wah, wah. Bo Dallas, I think, is a great example. He did not, you can blame it on
translate, or
you can blame it on the booking, or I don't know, but he just hasn't yet to connect with the WWE
Ascension,
audience.
I think, is one that's like, I think that's their own fault.
Yeah, I blame
that's
the booking.
Their own fault. WWE, not the Extension. I think it's WWE's fault.
Yeah, I think that their booking has been terribly mishandled since they've been brought up to the main roster. But they've been, they're still on a winning streak, so hopefully they can salvage this. I thought they were just fine as they were on NXT. I don't know why they had to put them in makeup and the goofy shoulder pad entrance, and
I thought a bigger stage, we got to make them look bigger persona. I think
I guess
somebody was like, "What is that? This?" and it turned out not working.
Yeah, but it worked at NXT, and I think if you just gave them a chance, it would have worked on the main roster. But we'll see where they go from here.
Yeah,
I'm also curious to see who's the next graduate. Who's the next guy. We've heard a lot that Adrian Neville is supposed to be brought up to the main roster. So we'll see where it goes, and it's WrestleMania season, so they don't like to make any big changes until after Mania.
I don't think they're going to really do anything too huge.
Yeah, I was honestly kind of surprised to see Ascension get brought up when they did. I thought they would wait until after Mania. Usually new talent makes their debuts after Mania.
Would you guess, since they did that, is Ascension going to be in the tag match at WrestleMania?
Yeah, maybe. We have one more pay-per-view in between. See how that shakes up.
Because that would make sense why they brought them up if they're going to put them in the tag match at Mania. But if they don't, then it's like, okay. So,
and speaking of debuts, we're all really excited for. There's been a lot of little vignettes. You've seen some technical difficulties when you watch NXT. The screen gets pixelated and it looks like the program froze up or something. Looks like some kind of computer freeze. And they've been sending little subliminal messages. And at TakeOver, they're, again, sort of the equivalent of their pay-per-view. The latest TakeOver, we saw it say that it's not over. The TakeOver is not over this week. So the internet is abuzz. We all believe that this week those vignettes will lead to one Solomon Crowe. We have heard that he debuted on the TV tapings for NXT this week. So this Wednesday, after you get home from watching Amped at Rockstar Pro Arena, you can dial up the network and see Rockstar Pro alumni Sami Callihan, now known as Solomon Crowe, making his official NXT debut.
Yeah, so, we're getting towards the end of everything, but again, go to DIYWrestling.com, catch up on our iPay-per-views, RockstarProWrestling.com for wrestling updates and newest episodes of AMP, and also you can catch up on the podcast if you want there and everything, and then Rockstar Pro Arena, has all our concert info, and you can also get tickets there and also little fun facts.
See if we can get this in real quick before we're out of time. Best of the year. We should have mentioned that.
Oh, yeah,
the fan voting. Go check it out on rockstarprowrestling.com. All the info's there, but according to you, Rockstar Nation, the fans voted Rockstar of the Year, Jake Christ, Match of the Year, Williams versus Reyes, Rivalry of the Year, Williams versus Reyes, and Newcomer of the Year, Duke Beefhammer. So there's a little feature on Rockstar Pro Wrestling about that. Check it out. And hey guys, we'll be back next week for another episode of Punks and Pinfalls.